What was the strangest moment in your life that you still can't explain up to this day? After I totaled my car, a man with burn scars all over his face and hands came to my window. He asked if I was okay and then came and sat in the passenger seat. He said, "I need you to know that everything happens for a reason." I said, "I know." The next thing I know, I'm talking to the other driver and police and the guy is just gone. No one else saw him. I saw my doppelganger while driving in a parking lot. We passed each other going super slow, and made eye contact. We both started laughing, and then continued on. My wife was sitting in the passenger seat, and saw him as well. It was super weird, and really fun for whatever reason. We still talk about it 10 years later. I regret not stopping and finding the guy to take a photo together. I was walking home one day and when I passed this one old dude's house and his dog was outside, and when I walked past I could have sworn the dog told me to get the fuck off the property in perfect English. I had a dream once and within the next month, everything from that dream happened in real life. For example, in the dream my wife rearranged our room, which is weird because she hates rearranging stuff, and then the next week she arranged it exactly like dream. In the dream I also got promoted, and then less than a week later I did in real life. My mom was looking at an old photo album and talking about a party that she organized for her coworkers more than 25 years ago. She said that it was nice of me to have helped her there setting up the tables etc. I have zero recollection of that party, nothing, so I thought she was joking. Then she showed me the pictures and I'm there. WTF. It's not like I was a kid. I was maybe 19 or 20. I wonder what else my brain erased. I was at a gas station and just finished buying something from inside. I came out and a burly man with a t-shirt that had some sort of meat business on it came up to me asking if I was interested in purchasing bulk frozen meats. I was absolutely broke except for about $500 on my credit card available. I didn't want to buy anything but my mouth blurted out yes as if my life depended on it. A few minutes later I went home with a month's worth of vacuum-sealed fish and chicken. I don't know what said yes, but it wasn't me. When I was in my teens, my dad relapsed into his drug and alcohol addiction again. It was the last straw for my mom and I, and we took off in the car at night to go for a drive and get out of the house. We were both angrier than we'd ever been. As we drove down the street, each streetlight we passed popped and went dark, for at least 3 blocks. At the time it really felt like our anger was so destructive that it was affecting the world around us. My mom and I still talk about that night and wonder what the fuck was going on with those lights. I was T-boned in an intersection. Not a very serious accident, mostly just shaken up. I was out of state at college at the time. Minutes after the accident, my cell phone rang and it was my dad. He said all of a sudden he was consumed with an overwhelming urge to call me, and was everything okay? I told him I was in an accident. He has passed away since, but he and I always had a very strong connection. I wish he would call me now, but then I guess it would be the strangest moment. I told work I had to go out of town for a week for a family member's, my grandmother's cousin in Texas, funeral. Completely fictitious. In reality I just wanted time off to hang out at the luxury home my friend was house-sitting, hot tub, full bar, etc. The day my vacation started, I got a call that my grandmother's cousin passed away and they were going out of town for the funeral and expected me to go with them. I was at work several years ago, and a coworker had a massive seizure. He later told us he had never had one before. Everyone started freaking out, and a man came over and gently held S down because he was in danger of slamming into a desk. When the seizure passed, the man stood up and said, "Ambulance should be here soon, so my work is done," and left. The weird thing? Nobody had any idea who that guy was. We were all so concerned about S that we didn't really register that the guy was a stranger until S was taken to the hospital. We were in a building that required a keycard to enter, and it was closed to the general public. There were only 12 of us in that office, and he wasn't one of us. So who the hell was he? Friends and I in my shitty Mazda smoking weed in the alley behind my GFS house. Neighbor walks out and starts punching an electric pole until his hands look like hamburger meat and there is blood soaking his white shirt. He calmly walks back into his house. We uncalmly get the fuck out of there. When I was 7 or 8, I used to spend Friday nights at my grandma's house. And she spoiled the crap out of me, so I loved it. One night, though, I suddenly had a strange urge to call my mom. I dialed my phone number, I mean I knew my own number right. A woman answered, and I suddenly blurted out, "Mom, come and get me." I have no idea why, to this day, that came out of my mouth. Like I said, I loved it there, and up until that moment had no thoughts of being picked up. Anyways, the person on the other end starts to sound panicky and says, "Where are you?" It hits me that this isn't my mom, so I just hang up, and go back to watching TV. So weird, and while it seems so minor, it's stuck with me for 30+ years. Well, the username I use was originally the name of the demon that haunted my nightmares. The more I used this username, the less often he would appear until probably my 22-ish birthday, where I have not had a nightmare with him in it since. I was living abroad when my grandfather passed away. On the day he passed away, I was feeling tired and weird the whole day without knowing why, so I went back to my place and took a nap. Later I woke up from my nap with a severe stomach cramp that left me out of breath, feeling like I was going to die that instant. That lasted about a minute or two. I felt strange and went on to call me mom, only to discover that my grandpa just passed away at the exact timing of my stomachache. In Eastern culture, my grandfather and I are of the exact same zodiac animal, even down to the element, so my family believe we shared a connection of sort. Sadly, I only knew till he's gone. When I was young, I saw burglars tiptoeing around my kitchen, about 3 to 4 of them. I didn't say anything or move, I just watched them and went back to sleep. But when I woke up in the morning, nothing was missing. I have what I call totally useless precognition. I routinely dream about mundane events. People in a room having a discussion, going to a concert and getting dinner beforehand, a random conversation. When the events occur, I very clearly remember having the dream about it. Nothing happens. There's no event, there's no important thing. It's just that I dreamt about it months or years before. Totally useless precognition. When I was very young, we were visiting my grandmother in another city. We slept in the same bed, in the basement. I woke up and saw a person, too dark to be recognizable, enter the room and come to our bed. They looked at us for a while and then left. The next morning, nobody had any idea what I was talking about. I guess it could have been sleep paralysis, but I didn't wake up in a panic. I just watched it happen, frightened. I spent a night a bit drunk with some friends, sketching and sharing new ideas for an art project we were working on. We talked a lot about using a fire extinguisher filled with paint for a background effect on huge canvas or a full room, but were wondering where we could get one for cheap and if it would work as we expected. Around 5 a.m. I leave my friend's apartment to take the first subway home, and I shit you not, 2 streets further on my way and in the middle of the sidewalk there is a fucking empty fire extinguisher. Took it home. It was such a strange coincidence, since I never stumbled upon an empty fire extinguisher in the street at any other point in my life. I was pretty sure I dreamt about it when I woke up later, but nope, it was still in the corner of my bedroom. When I was a child, I had a dream where a monster opened my closet door and chased me all the way to my parents' room. My parents said it was just a dream, but I have never sleepwalked. I saw it chase me to their room and the closet door was open. Which I never opened, much less slept with it open. So I either had a sleepwalking night terror or monsters are real and I almost died. A woman came to shop where I used to work. I greeted her with a smile and offered my help if needed. For like a good 10 minutes she kept walking around and looking at me like she knew me. I didn't mind and just did my thing. A few minutes later, by the biggest coincidence, I ended up cashing her out. She stared at me the whole time like she was looking through my soul, and she said out of nowhere, "Don't ever change who you are." I was so confused when it happened, and I still kind of am. I was driving back to high school after leaving something in my locker. I had a daydream that another classmate asked me for a ride home. In the lobby I ran into him, and he did just that. Then I drove him home. Felt super weird then. We never spoke even really before or after. Still feels weird now. Staying at grandparents for the weekend, they're eating dinner in dining room, I am in living room, open concept house, everyone sees each other, power is lost, lights are out, dark as could be. Power comes back on in what seems like 1 second. Grandmother is asleep in her bedroom and my grandfather was out in the garage. It has fucked with me my whole life. 31 now, I was about 5 or 6 at the time. Sadly both have passed by now. Only Matrix situation that messed up in my life so far. I once met this really weird dude from Montreal in NH, and was trying to tell my one friend all about it. We went to Montreal and I was like, maybe I'll hit up my buddy, ha ha ha, but obviously I didn't. We stepped out of our Uber at the restaurant we were going to and there he was. Montreal is a city of 2 million people. This was over 2 years ago and the odds still keep me up at night. I once knocked on my brother's door, got the feeling you get after a damn good stretch when you leave the universe for a second, but multiplied by like 50. When I got my vision back, the bookshelf that was behind me was destroyed, I think I fell into it, and then my brother opened the door. So it took place within like a few seconds, so I don't think I fainted, but it was just really confusing. I woke up in the middle of the night to pee. I stepped into the bathroom and as soon as I flipped on the light, the toilet flushed. I turned around and went right back to bed. 85% sure I wasn't dreaming. Snuck downstairs in 7th grade cuz I couldn't sleep. Stood in the kitchen for about 10 minutes watching my dad watch Star Trek. When it went to commercial I went to go back upstairs and the garage light was on. Went out and my dad was sorting recycling. Went back in and no one was there and the TV was off. I'm 32 now and still think about it. I have this ring that my mom had given to me. It used to be my late grandmother's. It was too big for me to wear on my finger so I put it on a chain and wore it like a necklace. I remember being in class and playing with it while doing my schoolwork, and it was still around my neck the whole time. At the end of the day, when school had let out and everyone was heading home, I realized I didn't have it around my neck anymore. I panicked and ran back to class and tried retracing my steps but never found it. I was really upset that I had lost this ring. When I had gotten home and entered my bedroom, I saw the ring and chain placed neatly on the center of my pillow. It looked as if someone has placed it there. When I was 9 I was told to clean my room and we would go to the local video store to rent a video game for the weekend. I clean my room, my mom approves of the cleaning job, we go to the store and I get my game. Whole trip lasts 20 minutes tops. Get back and all my toys are spread out across the floor in neatly organized lines, very deliberate looking. No one else was in the house. Nothing missing. Just this strange toy issue. My guess is it was a friend of mine either fucking with me or looking for something of theirs but no one ever confessed. One night a few years ago I was feeling like shit after a shot or 2 or 5 so I went to sleep. I dreamt about my girlfriend at the time coming into my room and rummaging through my drawers to find a box of condoms and the hunting knife she gave me. She put a condom on the blade of the cutting knife and then slowly pushed it into my chest while I was holding her and begging for her to stop. After the hilt pressed against my sternum for a moment, she fizzled into dust along with the knife. The pain stayed for a few hours though. The next day I got a ride over to her house and she confessed to me she was a lesbian and we weren't going to work out together once I moved out of state. My dad used to have a girlfriend that I really hated. She was like 20 years younger than him and pretty much a gold digger. I was studying abroad about to come back to my country and I texted my cousin asking if she could come with me to a witch to do some spells against her as soon as I would arrive. I took my flight to return home and the passenger next to me starts chatting and her story with her father was the same with same details as mine. The weirdest thing is that she told me, out of fucking nowhere and staring right into my eyes, to stay away from witchcraft. She had no way to know. And what are the odds that some stranger bring the witchcraft topic to the table while you are on the other side of the planet, 11,000 km away from home? In high school my friend and I were having lunch in the cafeteria. She was eating penne pasta and one of the noodles fell. We tried to find it to clean up and never found it. It just disappeared. It was an inside joke for years. Let me preface this that I've never believed in ghosts. To help you understand the situation fully you should know that I lived in a condo with the front door inside of a building. It was essentially an empty hall so everything echoed in that area. About a month after my dad passed away I dealt with my first ever, paranormal, experience. I'm sitting in my living room, only one awake, when I hear the front door slam open. I got up to check what happened and saw that the deadbolt was still in the locked position and the door was wide open. No one had come in or left. It was just open. Every time I think back to it I can't explain it. No wind in our empty hall of doors, no people in sight, there was nothing. When I was in high school, my family lived in a house that sat about 300 feet from the road. Every morning I had a long walk down the driveway to meet the bus, and since we lived in the country, the bus came pretty early. One morning while I was walking, something that looked like a spotlight crossed the yard in front of me. Sort of the opposite of a shadow. It wasn't completely dark outside, so I could see there wasn't anything flying above me, and other than the normal sounds of being outdoors, it was silent. I had forgotten about it until I read this post. So weird. One night I went out and was not feeling well. I had a few beers and went home. That night I swear I was awake when death walked in the door and said I was going to die if I didn't stop what I was doing. Had one drink the next day and went to AA. Not drinking was suddenly easy. 20 years later I got diagnosed with a genetic disorder that can cause the same symptoms as alcoholism because it depletes the same vitamin. I was so confused when this nurse said if I drank less I wouldn't be having those symptoms. I was no longer sober, but I drank maybe 4 glasses of wine a week. I stopped drinking completely when I learned this. So I was supposed to be asleep. It was very late one night. My brother and I were upstairs, asleep. My mom was in the living room and my dad was still at work. So according to my mom, she heard groaning coming from the staircase. She looked and she saw me walking down. I then turned towards her and stared. She described me as someone put into a trance. She then asked what's wrong. I then asked, "Where's Matt?" Matt is my brother. I apparently asked this in a trance-like state. She told me he was upstairs in your room, we share a room. I then said no he isn't. She then pulled me to our room and pointed to him. I then just collapsed after seeing him. I have no recollection of doing this. And neither me or my mom can explain it. I had a few weeks of pregnancy symptoms. I'd been pregnant before and it was exactly the same. So I took some tests and did them daily until eventually I got weird faint lines. One night I had to stay awake next to my open window all night with headache and nausea. I knew at this point I was certainly pregnant and I was about to get a positive test soon. So I tried that morning and it came up very faint. I asked my twin was she unwell lately or anything, and she was like yeah I was up feeling ill all last night. Why? I said well I've been feeling sick a lot lately. She said, me too, and sent me a pregnancy scan telling me it's early so not to tell anyone. I had my period a couple of days after. We were watching the school news in 7th grade. In our homeroom class, it briefly cut to footage of a kid dressed like a nun and then cut back to the school news. WTF. Once, when I used to smoke weed with my friends in high school, we were in my room smoking and a blank piece of printer paper gracefully floated off of my desk and danced its way to the floor. It went straight between the floorboards. These boards were tight. You couldn't even see a discernible crack. We couldn't fit anything in there. It was like magic. When I was much younger I remember sitting in the classroom talking to one of my good friends about her 2 other brothers. I made a comment how her older brother was so much more attractive than her younger brother. Began to laugh and make other odd comments about their looks. Shallow I know, but we were young. I remember feeling bad about our shallowness and said something of the sorts of we better not talk that way because there could be an accident. We kind of just brushed it off and started talking about something else. A couple weeks later her brothers were in a car accident. The older one died, he was only maybe 18. The younger brother survived, however he was severely mentally handicapped afterwards. Always blamed myself for the words I spoke weeks prior to the accident. I stood on a large granite rock behind a pagan shop, crystals, incense, tarot cards, that type stuff, and suddenly it was night and people were standing all around it in circles wearing robes and chanting under a full moon. I stepped off the rock and it was early afternoon again, stared at the owner and said, do you have ceremonies here? She laughed and said, we do, and it's rude to stand on the rock like that, but I know you didn't know so I'm not mad. I was at Walmart kinda late in the baby section. A peculiar looking woman comes up to me. Her head was shaved except for a long braid in the back. She was wearing a long skirt with a fringe suede jacket. She says, excuse me, can I ask you a question? I say okay. She says, what does spells it out, fuck mean? I say, She says, does it mean something like, for unlawful carnal knowledge? I decide to humor her and say, I don't know about that, but I guess it's an insult or means to have sex or something. She gets a little embarrassed, maybe sensing my uncomfortableness or realizing what it meant. She then says, it's one of those 4-letter words, I guess love is a better 4-letter word, and leaves. I start looking around for hidden cameras. I still get reminded of this. I worked selling car stereos after college. 3 early 20s sales guys, we used to compete and boast when we landed a deal. Usually we spouted rap lyric boasts at each other. I sold a system to a customer Monday and he came back Tuesday morning to get it. He picked up his ride, rolled out and I walked into the office chirping Biggie, "Gots paid, blow up like the World Trade." The first plane hit 4 minutes later. One time, I didn't do my homework in 4th grade and my teacher called on my name to answer the questions on the board. He went to the back of the class to get his coffee and I just started praying for someone to save me, for any miracle to help me through the embarrassment. He called my name again to go up and I started praying even harder. My teacher soon walked back up to the front and asked the class if I answered the questions and the whole class said yes. He replied, "Great, thank you," and moved on to the next set of questions. I still don't know to this day if my class had done me a solid or God just sent me to the future. From the age of 16 to about 20 I had a series of vivid nightmares as well as sleep paralysis episodes involving demons, audible, legible whispering in my ear, waking up with light scratches on my back and ash on my forehead. I haven't had an episode in close to 2 years. I was shot at for over 20 minutes straight by a squad-sized element. The structure I was cowering in was torn to shreds. Nothing but bullet holes. Not only did I live, I wasn't even so much as hurt. A female confessing her feelings to me, a male. It wasn't a joke either, that was an awkward point in my life. The bus I rode with my date is the same bus I rode home, alone. Sort of ongoing. I still sleepwalk and sleep talk. My roommate says that for the past couple months I've been mentioning, a man, that I guess I see while I'm sleeping. He said one night I was pointing to the open closet and saying that he was there. Apparently, I've been mentioning him quite frequently and it makes me sort of uneasy since I have no memory of what I do or say when I sleepwalk talk. Also, I've been having some really bizarre dreams the last few nights. Might be related but who knows lol. For Left 4 Dead players. For backstory, I have a twin brother as well as an older brother. One night when we were still in grade school, my twin apparently walked into my older brother's room and then continued to weep. He said that it reminded him of the witch in L4D, and that really freaked him out at the time, as if my twin was being possessed. Today, it's probably nothing, but the thought of trying to go to sleep and then that happening just freaks me out. Also, my older brother apparently dreamt, still while younger, that a witch touched his forehead, and then he woke up with a scratch mark in the same place. It may have been a cat or maybe him falling off his bed, but it's freaky knowing that he just had a dream somewhat relating to it beforehand. Trump getting so many votes in 2020 after the year we've had.